Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time we're looking at NFTs, but um, not the usual stuff you hear about, but
Yeah.
we'll be going deeper into the legal side of things.
Yeah.
And we have this awesome guide called NFTs and Digital Rights from Hoken.
Mm.
It's really a practical guide for how to understand this whole world,
Oh, yeah.
and man, it can get complicated fast.
Absolutely. We've seen this market just explode. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
back in 2017, it was like a what, $105 million market. And now by 2025, it's supposed to be over $7 billion.
Yeah, that's massive,
Huge growth. So with all that growth comes questions, though,
right?
especially legal questions.
Oh, for sure.
Like when you have that crypto punk that sold for $500 million after like changing hands 5 times or something.
Yeah, what does that even mean?
What does ownership even mean at that point? So that's what we're diving into today.
Yeah, that sale definitely raised some eyebrows for me.
So this guide we're looking at, it says that buying an NFT isn't always like owning a physical object. Could you explain that a little bit? Yeah, it's a really good point. So in a lot of cases, when you buy an NFT, what you're actually getting is more like a license to use it personally.
Right.
The creator or the brand, whoever made it, they usually keep the full intellectual property rights. You know, it's kind of like if you buy a limited edition print of a famous painting,
Right.
you own that print,
Yeah.
but you don't have the right to just make copies of the painting itself.
Okay, that makes sense. So how does that work in an industry like fashion, where you see NFTs becoming more and more popular?
Yeah, fashion is a really interesting example because it shows you both the good stuff and the challenges with NFTs.
Okay.
You've got brands releasing like digital-only clothes and accessories, even virtual fashion shows, all using NFTs.
Wow.
It creates this whole new level of exclusivity and helps fight counterfeiting, too,
Hmm.
because each NFT is unique and you can check it on the blockchain.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Counterfeiting is like a huge problem in fashion.
Oh, absolutely.
But what about the actual creators themselves? Like, how are NFTs affecting them?
Well, NFTs have this cool thing called programmable royalties.
Okay.
Every time an NFT is resold, the creator automatically gets a cut of the sale.
Really?
Yeah, it's like a new way for them to earn money directly tied to how much their work is worth.
That sounds pretty revolutionary.
It is. But of course, there are challenges to think about, too.
Like what?
Well, like what happens to those royalties if the platform that hosts the NFT suddenly goes bankrupt?
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Or like what if there's a fight over what the royalty percentage should be?
Right.
These are all questions the legal system is still trying to figure out.
So it's like the law is trying to catch up to all this new tech.
Exactly. And speaking of catching up, there's this thing called the DAC7 directive. It's about regulating cryptocurrency. And I've heard a lot about it lately. What exactly does it mean for people making and buying NFTs? Basically, it's a bunch of rules to make the crypto world more transparent. Platforms have to collect information about their users and the transactions happening, and they have to report all of that to the tax authorities.
Oh, so no more hiding in the shadows.
Right, transparency is key. And especially because these NFT transactions can happen anywhere in the world.
Yeah, it adds a whole other layer of complexity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like imagine you're in the US and you buy an NFT from someone in Japan.
Mm.
If there's a disagreement, whose laws apply?
Yeah, that's a headache just thinking about it.
It's a jurisdictional puzzle.
Yeah.
So the question is, how do we untangle this whole legal web?
Yeah. Are there any tools or anything out there to make it all clear and more secure?
Well, one of the most important things, and really the backbone of any NFT project, is the smart contract.
Okay, I've heard that term before, but I'm not totally clear on it. So what role do smart contracts play in all this?
They do way more than just say who owns the NFT.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they outline what you can do with it, how the royalties are split up, what the platform is responsible for, and even what happens if there's a problem or the platform shuts down. It's like the rule book for your NFT.
Okay, so they sound pretty important then. So what should people be looking for when they're checking out a smart contract for an NFT? Like, are there any red flags?
You definitely want to pay attention to the details. First off, look for clear language about ownership. Who has what rights?
Right.
Are those rights exclusive, or can other people have some rights too? Then look at the usage rights. Can you change the NFT?
Okay.
Are you allowed to use it for commercial purposes? Things like that. It's not just about owning it. It's about understanding what you can actually do with it.
Right.
Right.
Are there any other, like, potential problems hidden in these smart contracts that we should be watching out for?
Oh, yeah, for sure. You really got to understand what the platform's obligations are too.
Okay.
What are they supposed to do about security? Keeping things running smoothly? What if there's a dispute between users? And what happens if the whole platform just shuts down?
It's easy to get caught up in, like, the NFT itself And forget about the platform it all runs on.
Exactly. And that's where things can get really complicated because the NFT world is so global. You have all these different countries with their own laws about intellectual property and digital assets and contracts.
Right.
What's totally fine in one place might be a huge legal mess in another.
So how do creators and buyers even deal with that? It sounds like a recipe for trouble.
That's why those carefully written smart contracts are so important.
Yeah.
They can actually say which country's laws will be used if there's a disagreement.
So it's like picking your battleground ahead of time.
Exactly. It makes things more predictable and helps avoid some serious legal headaches later on. But it also shows you why it's so important to have legal experts involved when you're making or reviewing these contracts.
It's like that saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Exactly, especially when you think about how much money is involved with NFTs. We've seen some go for millions of dollars. Imagine the legal battles you could have if those contracts aren't rock solid.
That's a scary thought.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of high-profile cases, there have been some lawsuits lately about who owns NFTs and what they can do with them. Have those cases given us any clues about how these things might be handled in the future?
Definitely. We're seeing lawsuits about copyright infringement, whether you can use an NFT for commercial purposes, all kinds of stuff.
Wow.
These cases are setting precedents that'll shape the future of NFT law. Like there was one case with a photographer who sued an NFT marketplace because they were selling tokens based on his photos without his permission.
Oh, wow.
And the court sided with the photographer. It shows how important it is to have clear agreements about ownership and licensing.
It sounds like the courts are starting to understand the unique challenges that come with NFTs.
Yeah, but it's still early days.
Good.
Are there specific regulations coming down the pipeline that creators and investors should be aware of?
That's a good question.
Well, it's early, but regulators are paying attention. We're seeing discussions about how existing laws like copyright and consumer protection apply to NFTs, and there's talk about making completely new regulations just for NFTs.
So it sounds like the legal landscape for NFTs is constantly shifting.
It is. That's why everyone involved needs to stay informed and be ready to adapt as things change. Creators, investors, even the platforms themselves.
So for someone who's just starting out in the NFT world,
Mm-hmm.
what advice would you give them? What are the key things to keep in mind?
First of all, do your research. Don't just jump into a project because it's trendy or someone famous is promoting it. Understand the technology, the risks, and especially the legal side of things.
Yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the hype.
It is. So approach NFTs with a healthy dose of skepticism and make sure you understand the legal stuff. Read those smart contracts carefully, even if the legal language seems overwhelming. If there's anything you don't understand, get clarification.
Yeah, there are tons of resources and communities online that can help. And of course, if you're dealing with high-value NFTs or have any legal concerns, it's always a good idea to talk to a lawyer who specializes in intellectual property and digital assets.
Absolutely. It's an investment in protecting yourself and making sure you're on solid legal ground.
So we've covered a lot of ground today. We've talked about the complexities of NFT ownership, the role of smart contracts, the challenges of different legal jurisdictions, and the evolving regulatory landscape.
And we've looked at real-world examples of legal disputes and the precedents they're setting for the future of NFT law.
It's clear that NFTs are more than just a digital fad. They're pushing the boundaries of ownership, creativity, and even the legal system itself.
And as with any new technology, there are both opportunities and risks to consider.
But with a good understanding of the legal aspects and a willingness to stay informed, navigating this exciting new world can be both rewarding and secure. It really feels like we're moving past that initial hype around NFTs,
Yeah.
And now people are starting to understand the tech better and what it all means.
Exactly. I think we're moving into a phase where the legal side of things is finally catching up to how fast everything's changing.
So as those laws and regulations develop, how do you think the legal landscape for NFTs might change in the future?
That's a really good question. I think we're going to see more specific regulations probably.
Wow.
Stuff that deals with intellectual property rights, consumer protection, maybe even taxes on NFT transactions.
So it's not just about figuring out who owns what.
Right.
It's about making sure creators are getting paid fairly,
Mm,
consumers are protected, and governments can get their cut too.
exactly. It's about finding that balance, and encourage innovation, but also deal with the unique challenges that NFTs bring to the legal system.
We've talked about how NFT transactions can happen anywhere in the world,
Yeah.
but I'm wondering how international laws will play into all of this.
Mm.
As NFTs become more mainstream, do you think we'll see more disputes between people in different countries? And how will those be settled?
That's a really interesting question. We might see countries coming together to make agreements or treaties specifically about NFT disputes, or maybe existing legal frameworks like the Berne Convention for Copyright will be reinterpreted to include NFTs.
It sounds like lawyers are going to be busy keeping up with all this.
Oh, absolutely. This is a whole new area of law, and we're already seeing law firms and lawyers specializing in it.
So for someone listening who's thinking, this all sounds really cool, but I have no idea where to start, what advice or resources would you recommend?
Well, the guide we've been talking about from Hoken Tech is a great place to begin.
Hmm.
There are also online communities and forums where people discuss the legal side of NFTs. And of course, staying up to date on industry news and what's happening with the laws is really important.
So if someone's thinking about investing in NFTs or even creating their own, what are some key legal things they should keep in mind?
Due diligence is key. Do your research before investing in any NFT. Understand what the smart contract says, and it's always a good idea to talk to a lawyer, especially if you're dealing with high-value NFTs or have any legal questions, just to make sure you know what you're getting into.
It's like you said before, knowledge is power,
Mm,
especially in a field that's changing so fast.
absolutely. The more you understand the legal stuff, the better you'll be able to navigate the NFT world confidently and responsibly.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from ownership and intellectual property to smart contracts and the future of NFT regulations. It's been a deep dive into a really complex but incredibly interesting topic.
Yeah, and it's only going to become more important as NFTs keep growing and spreading across different industries and all over the world.
So to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this exploration of the legal side of NFTs. We hope you learned something new and feel more confident about navigating this space.
And remember, the NFT world is always changing, so stay curious, keep learning, and be ready to adapt as this exciting technology keeps evolving.
That's great advice. And with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Until next time, stay informed and keep exploring the incredible world of NFTs.